Yo, what is going on, everyone in crypto space? Thank you guys for tuning in to the channel today. Really do appreciate it. So today, I think we are going to be having a lengthy discussion about regulation, why it needs to happen, reasons why it's going to happen, and really just proof of what we're seeing that regulation truly does need to come to cryptocurrency. Now, before I get into as you can see, all the pieces of info we have here to kind of back up my claim of, yeah, we're gonna get regulation, and we do truly need it for cryptocurrency to continue to thrive. Because at small scale, I don't think crypto really needed regulation. You know, Bitcoin from Genesis until about, I'd say 2014, 2015, it wasn't as wide adopted as it is today. I mean, I wouldn't say like it's widely adopted today, but it's widely adopted if you compare it to Bitcoin 3 years ago. I mean, 3 years ago, Bitcoin's volume was literally like under 50 million per day. Now it's over 4 billion a day. So it really has been adopted a lot more than it was a couple years ago. And the thing is when you're getting out of that small scale and you're going to continue to expand, whatever digital asset or cryptocurrency you're talking about, you're gonna need the support of the government. You're really, at one point or another, you're going to need the support of the government, because, and they're going to want a piece of the pie of taxes, and they're going to want to regulate it, make sure that we keep fraud to an absolute minimum, and implement anti-money laundering laws, and just all the sort of things that happen when it really comes to scaling up with cryptocurrency. Because nowadays we're getting so many businesses across the world integrating digital assets and blockchain within their business models. So it's not widely adopted, but it's adopted enough to where a lot of people are involved. So therefore we need the government regulation. So first thing I do want to talk about is how recently, I mean, 3 hours ago recently, so the federal court rules case in favor of crypto ICO against SEC. Now, when you read through the whole article, and I believe some pieces were left out because it was quite vague, I'm going to tell you guys what they said, and then I'm going to kind of elaborate on what I really think that happened. So what happened here, that this company called Blockvest, they're an ICO, and they did some sort of airdrop thing, and the SEC went out of their way to go into court, in federal court, to go against this company. And what happens is literally the federal court, it says somewhere here that that the federal court went out of its way to reject the argument from the SEC that the mere act of distributing an asset through an airdrop or a token sale is a security, as it doubled down on its stance that a token offering in itself is not a security. Now, basically, what it really sounds like is what happened is that this is kind of, honestly, from a government standpoint, if you're not going to regulate a certain asset class and then try to go and attack it when there's not a clear level playing field there, so these companies don't even really know what to do. So from reading this article, it truly sounds like what happened is that the SEC, they're trying to go after this one ICO startup, and then the ICO comes back with the argument of, hey, well, why are you coming and attacking me for not, complying with security laws when you haven't established any clear infrastructure for regulation so us ICO startups know what to do? And that's where it pretty much caused the federal court. I mean, listen to this, guys. This is how much the SEC just slapped right in court. The federal court favored the ICO against the SEC because of the simple fact that the SEC, which I think is kind of absurd, they're trying to go after companies in a lawsuit when they haven't even themselves gotten off their ass to provide some regulation so these ICO companies know what to do and know what limits to stay in when, doing airdrops and token sales and whatnot. So it's funny to see that the SEC, they're just literally just biting themselves right in the ass by going out into court and then trying to go after Blockvest, which is the ICO company, and say, oh, you're not doing all this correctly. But then it comes right back at them going, hey, you're not establishing any clear regulation so the ICO companies actually know what to do and what limits in regards to stay in when it comes to, distribution, essentially, and complying with security or non-security laws, right? So that's why I think recently, November 5th, we actually had an SEC official say that a plain English guidance on ICOs is coming. So that definitely is in the works for the SEC to come into and start regulating the ICOs, because I think the reason why they're so hot to regulate ICOs is because the majority of the fraud takes place in these ICOs, because they're literally companies, which is really just a group of people that come out and just start hyping things up and broadcasting, hey, like next Bitcoin, 500x your investment, and then they end up just leaving, and they leave with all the money, and people are just left without an investment. So that's why I feel like the SEC, they went after them knowing that, hey, we are coming out with an ICO regulation, but let's see if we can really just go after this ICO in court. So it's funny to see the SEC get absolutely backstabbed by themselves because they tried to go after a company for not complying with security laws, but then the argument comes back to, well, the SEC is not coming out with any sort of infrastructure of regulation so that these companies know what to do. It's almost like the SEC is expecting these ICO companies to know all the laws and know exactly what they are and what they aren't supposed to do. So it's kind of cool to see the federal court favoring an ICO over the SEC. I think that's just a big slap in the face. I mean, they deserve it. It's their fault. They're the ones laying back and not wanting to regulate anything and just sit back and act like everything's just going to be okay if they don't want to touch regulation at all. But the truth is, we do need a infrastructure of regulation. That's what we do need it for this cryptocurrency to survive. I know Bitcoin's all against, no government, no institution, but it truly seems like now it's going to need that for crypto to survive. Maybe not for privacy coins or whatnot. Those might actually take some harm to the regulation. But I mean, again, with XRP, I absolutely think that regulation is going to play in our favor because by having it regulated, it'll allow these institutions to step in and use XRapid a lot easier without having to worry about, the legal side of it. And also, guys, remember this. Never forget this, that we do have a lot of industry leaders in the cryptocurrency space that do have a lobby group, which is basically just throwing money to politicians because nowadays politicians ain't getting money thrown at them. They're not doing anything. So remember, we do have a lobby group for cryptocurrency. I think Ripple has their own as well, with Coil, PolySci, and another company I can't quite remember. But we do have lobbying groups in crypto to engage in discussion with politicians to push crypto regulation forward. Because really, what do the politicians really care? They're not going to make any money off regulating it. So if they do get some money thrown at them, I mean, I know it sounds from a moral standpoint kind of horrible. That's kind of how politics is. It's really just is pay to play. So I think it is kind of good. I think the lobbying group will really help in the factor of making the incentive of pushing cryptocurrency regulation, which I don't think is great on that front. Next thing today, I know we're covering like a lot of Bitcoin stuff, but all this regulation, when cryptocurrency gets regulated, it all ties back into financial institutions being able to easily lean into the use of XRapid. And so last Monday, the VanEck, SolidX, and CBOE, who all have ETFs, they did indeed meet with the SEC on Monday. Now, nothing was really released of what was actually said and discussed, but basically, according to this article, it was just very vague statements like, this is why they're giving reasons why they think it should be approved and why it could bring a lot of benefit to the economy and blah, 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 all the kind of stuff that comes out with a Bitcoin future. So it's interesting to see as well how we go from absolute just like SEC not doing anything to all of a sudden now they're pushing out ICOs. Now they're actually meeting with these ETF, the companies who are behind the Bitcoin ETF. So kind of just something to stay on watch there. So next thing, the G20, we recently did have, which is what's it called? It's all these countries here. And something to note about the countries that participate in the G20. And the G20 have said that they are like 100%, they have declared a commitment to regulate cryptocurrency assets to FATF standards, so they can get, going against money laundering and fraud and whatnot. And what I actually noticed here is I didn't know 100% who was actually a part of the G20. I knew it was like the US and China, and that's about it. But I actually did a little Wikipedia page here. And it has a list of countries who participate in the GN or the G20. They have like these little separate groups and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. But anyways, what really matters is what countries are involved. And what you'll notice here is we do have some countries involved who are actually taking quite the initiative on Ripple. I mean, for example, Japan, like South Korea and the other Southern Eastern Asian countries, they're actually heavily adopting Ripple. And 50% of all Ripple's clients are based out of Southeast Asia. So really cool to see there that Japan and South Korea are part of the G20, which again is one of the essentially biggest clients of Ripple. 61 banks in Japan work with Ripple. Think about that for a second, which accounts for 80% of the banking assets in Japan total. So we got Japan, South Korea, we have Ripple partners there. We do also have Ripple partners in China. Indonesia, not 100% sure of, but I know that from Margin Della Tin that they are in discussion with German banks. Italy, not so much. United Kingdom, The Bank of England, like the Central Bank of England, is actually working with Ripple to complete a real-time gross settlement system. Again, so a lot of countries here do have some pretty big ties to Ripple. As well as, let's see here, Mexico, you have Qualix using XRP. Brazil, we are working with the Central Bank of Brazil. Argentina, nothing really there. India, Ashish Barilla actually did state that Ripple has 50% of the payment market share in India in terms of client signed, and as well, they got big traction in the United States. And Saudi Arabia, especially the Middle East, is where we're seeing a lot of big developments. And by the way, guys, Ripple is working with and has a production contract with the Central Bank of Saudi Arabia. So what's really awesome to see is that from this G20 meeting where the direct discussion of regulating crypto assets came out of, majority of these countries do have a pretty good vested interest into Ripple and XRP, which I was so stoked to see, because at first I really didn't know what countries were associated with it, but as you can see, like Saudi Arabia, United States, even like Royal Bank of Canada we're working with. So a lot of these countries here are having some big institutions from that local country working with Ripple, and I think that might have a little something to do with regulating crypto assets coming up, because these countries that Ripple are working with are a little bit more innovative on the blockchain side. So it was really cool to see that. And also, again, I know it's kind of old news, but Monetary Authority of Singapore, I've discussed about this in yesterday's video, but the Monetary Authority of Singapore, they came out with their own ICO regulation for digital assets on the same day that the G20 made their statement. So again, the G20, they are a pretty powerful organization and can have quite a bit of influence. So it's cool to see that all of these countries here are a part of essentially the G20 statement of regulating cryptocurrencies. And it's already cool, you know, we do have a plain English guidance on ICOs coming pretty soon. So we're really starting to see the development of regulation. So last sort of topic I want to discuss on, this is a little bit more on the speculation aspect of things, but at the same time, I really don't think it's speculation. Here is a list of all the institutions in the US who are getting into crypto. Nano Holdings, I believe that is Japan, so let's get that one out of there. But these are all institutions based in the United States who have expressed the fact that they do want to get into the cryptocurrency market. And you're telling me these big institutions are not worried about regulation in the slightest. I guarantee you what's going on behind closed doors is all these massive Fortune 500 companies that pretty much have a big stake in the US economy are wanting to get into a cryptocurrency platform or cryptocurrency custody. And what I'm not buying is the fact that there's no way that they are not engaging with regulators. These are some of the largest institutions in the world. JP Morgan, 5th largest institution in the world by assets. So you're telling me that a big giant like JP Morgan is not engaging with the federal government to get regulation on cryptocurrency. I guarantee you all of these institutions are all discussing with federal regulators to try to get crypto regulation forward so they can push these cryptocurrency futures. Again, another point I want to make. Backed, I don't buy this crap. This I do not buy. You're telling me basically Backed. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're lying. I'm pretty sure the real reason why they delayed, they're never going to reveal it. But I have a pretty good reason as to what it might be. And so they say, given the volume of interest in Backed and work required to get all the pieces in place, we will now be targeting January 24th, 2019 for our launch to ensure that our participants are ready to trade on day one. So you're telling me the parent company behind one of the largest stock exchanges in the world, didn't expect, doesn't know how to scale on volume of interest. I mean, they absolutely knew that it was going to gain a lot of traction because of how big the cryptocurrency community is and the fact that they were a gigantic institution getting behind cryptocurrency futures. And you're telling me that it's going to take them a whole nother month and a half just to scale their platform. I mean, the owner of New York Stock Exchange, I'm pretty sure the New York Stock Exchange does know how to scale pretty easily. So I don't really buy that. To me, honestly, what I think what they're really wanting to say, but they're not saying it, is that, we do kind of have some regulation bottlenecks, and we really need to get those sorted through before we can actually launch. And I believe there's probably a date coming up. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. I believe on the 29th, like the next round of ETF approvals or delays or reviews is coming soon. So I think that might be the reason why they really did delay. But anyways, guys, main point of this video was really that regulation is coming. It's inevitable. We've seen it with all of the pieces of evidence I have showed you. Regulation is coming to cryptocurrency, and why I'm stoked about it is because we truly, truly need regulation. Because right now, Ripple is at the task of influencing banks to use their technology, as well as engage with regulators. They're going after two big tasks at once. So the thing is that if we have regulation on our side, if we can finally get all these major economies in the world, and especially the emerging markets that Ripple is working with, to all establish a level playing field of infrastructure for regulation, that would allow companies to be a lot more willing to join onto the Ripple net, because they don't have to worry about legal laws. They don't have to worry about the legal side of it, because the regulation would already be there. I'm telling you right now, if regulation for cryptocurrency was already established about 3 years ago, I'm telling you Ripple right now would probably be more towards 500 to 1,000 clients. And Dad quit texting me. So I feel like if the regulation was already in place, a couple years ago, I feel like Ripple would be a lot more accelerated in terms of adoption. Because if you're a bank and you have someone pitching a cryptocurrency product to you, and it sounds good and you want to use it and whatnot, right? But if you're getting into it, but then you realize the legal side of it, that there is no regulation established, so we don't really know what to do exactly, because maybe we want to use the product, but the regulation isn't there. I feel like regulation is holding back the acceleration of adoption, because as a financial institution, although there are financial institutions like working with Ripple and regulators at the same time, to push this through because they're really committed to it. But as a bank, would you want to use something that isn't regulated? That's kind of the problem. So if we get this regulation established, it'll make financial institutions a lot more open to using Ripple and XRP, because they can hear all the pitches and, like the 1 cent transaction fee, 1,500 transactions per second, and scaling to 10K plus, as well as like 3-second settlement times, then cut costs by 70-90%. Banks would be a lot more willing to do it if they could listen to this product and go, okay, it is legal and it is regulated, so therefore, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead, let's sign a contract. That's what I mean by regulation. I feel is absolutely necessary to accelerate the growth of Ripple and XRP, because Brad Garlinghouse said it best himself. It allows financial institutions to easily lean into the technology without having to worry about any of the legal side. Because again, businesses by nature want to avoid all legal issues. You get into a legal battle, it can get real ugly quick. So by having this regulation in place, we can get these financial institutions, again, just like Brad said, we can get these financial institutions to easily lean into the technology without having to worry about the regulatory side. I'm telling you guys, that regulation, we're probably going to see a boom of regulation. I'd say Q2 2019, we're probably going to see a lot of regulation get established. Mainly 2019, I'm pretty sure, I think will be the year of finally the government's getting off the rear hinds, getting regulation established, and help actually drive this innovation and not keep us in the gray constantly. So guys, I'm telling you, regulation, the day we get something from the SEC and it's clear regulation, the day we hear from just like another, like maybe from, what would be insane is hearing from what's the United Nations. The United Nations. If the United Nations could come out and really back cryptocurrency regulation, if the whole globe could just, if the governments could realize that blockchain and cryptocurrency is being integrated with so many business models, and it's adopted to a point where there is a lot of people involved, and we need that regulation there, so we're not sitting here in the gray area on the sidelines not knowing what to do because there's no regulation involved. But if we get that level playing field of infrastructure, of regulation, that's going to allow banks and financial institutions all around the globe be much more open to using digital assets for transfer, because the clear regulation is there. And don't forget, guys, Ripple is in discussion with like 40 to 50 central banks, which have heavy monetary authority over those countries, and meeting with the White House administration. So Ripple is really engaging with regulators as much as possible. And I believe, guys, regulation is inevitable, and I feel like that could be a catalyst for a wave of adoption. So, last kind of point on the video has absolutely nothing to do with what they're talking about, but I feel like you guys might be interested in it. So, the Ethereum Classic developers, they have hit us with the shocking message that they are closing down operations due to the bear market and combined with a cash crunch at the company. So, Coinbase, a coin with abandoned developers and a dead project, or a coin that is making heavy waves into the financial industry and has one of the best teams in the world and is being widely adopted by some of the largest financial institutions in existence? I think I'll go with the coin with the abandoned developers. So basically, guys, if Ethereum Classic doesn't get delisted, I don't know what's going on. The project is abandoned. Coinbase, please rethink your business strategy. So thank you guys for watching this video today. Really do appreciate it. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe. Check the links in the description if you want to support the channel. Get yourself Nano S. Keep that cryptocurrency safe. And turn on post notifications so you never miss a video or a stream. So, thank you guys for tuning in this video as always. And the main message I want you guys to leave with is regulation will be the accelerator of adoption, because that allows financial institutions to easily use the technology and easily be persuaded into using digital assets for transfer without having to worry about the legal side of it. Regulation is coming, it's imminent, and it's going to benefit the heck out of XRP. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.